Welcome to the Amazing Authorities Podcast, where game changers, visionaries, and category leaders share how they built their brands, platforms, and global influence. Your host is Mitch Carson, international speaker, media strategist, and creator of the Instant Authority System. If you're ready to learn from those who've done it and want to become the go-to expert in your space, you're in the right place.
Today's guest hails from a cartoon country, not cartoon country, a cartoon area that I used to watch as a little boy. Rose Davidson is here. She's from Tasmania, and they're famous for a lot of things, but the one that I remember as a boy was the devil. Well, she's anything but the devil. Today, she's going to share her experience and what she has mustered through in order to create a global brand with her podcast. I had the great pleasure of being a guest on Rose's show earlier, or no, it was last year. We're already in 2025 and 2024. And since I've started my own podcast, I want to invite select individuals back to guest and to share their wisdom. Rose, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mitch. It's a pleasure to be here, and good luck and congratulations with your podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a labor of love and something that's different than my television background where I was a host, different platform, some similarities, but there are probably more dissimilarities than similarities. Other than using your voice as the tool, a lot of tips, and you are an expert in this category. I remember that from our interview, and also what you've done with it. You started literally from scratch. Talk to me about that journey.
It happened just after the lockdowns here in Australia in 2020. I'm a heart-centered type of person. Okay. And I could see a lot of businesses that were closing because they didn't have the means or the way to keep their businesses open and obviously thrive. So I thought, why not start a podcast? Now, I'd heard of podcasts, but I'd never actually listened to one. And someone had mentioned podcasting to me, and I thought, why not? Why not just start a podcast and get other business owners on air and give hints, tips, insights into how they were keeping their businesses running. And I was thinking that this might help the businesses that were closing restructure their businesses to be able to be profitable. And that's where I started. I started with no equipment, just my laptop. I didn't have a microphone or what was just built into the laptop, and I built from there.
And how long have you been podcasting?
Nearly 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in July, and I've recorded over 600 episodes.
All right. Well, you already answered the question I was going to follow up with. So that's more than 100 episodes per year.
It is.
If you work it out. So so the name of your podcast is Talking with the Experts, and truly, yes. Yeah. So mine is Amazing Authorities, and that's why I've got you on here. You are truly an authority. After 5 years, what have you learned along the road? What did you know then? I know it started out as a passion, truly coming from your heart, wanting to help people. What has it done for you in your business, and what has it done for others?
For others, I think it's given them a voice that they may not have had in the usual way. A lot of business owners are looking for ways to build their brand, build their business. And so being a guest on a podcast is the way to do that, because you can promote your services, you can share your insights and knowledge in the particular industry that you're in. And because Talking with the Experts is all about business, that there's a broad range of topics that can be discussed. And guesting is a really great way to, as I said, build your business and get yourself out there and become known to the world, basically. Especially if you're not have a business on a global scale.
Well, you're in Tasmania. I was living in Las Vegas when I was a guest on your show. Now I have moved into a different phase and I'm living in Thailand. So we're only a few hours apart, much easier to make this happen. Isn't location freedom part of this?
It is. I have most of my guests are from the United States, so time differences can be challenging. I interview over a number of hours during the day, so some of my interviews start at 11 a.m. on my time and finish, and some start at 9 p.m. So it makes a long day of recording. But on the other side of that, it's an early start for my guests. So there's a lot of give and take in time-wise, and you have to make allowances for that. And, if it's an early start for someone, which it is for you this morning, Mitch, is, you've got to make sure as a guest that you're wide awake. And as a host, you've got to be aware that these people sometimes have just woken up. So you to try and get the best out of your guest, you've got to be amenable, and you've got to be willing to take some leeway with how they might be feeling.
Well, you've mentioned before when we spoke about the myths. Tell us about the myths of podcasting versus the reality of podcasting, given your status as an expert in this field after all the 600 episodes.
Well, the biggest myth is that it's costs a lot of money. That is the biggest myth that I've ever come across. And quite honestly, you don't have to spend a great deal of money to be able to start a podcast. You can start with a laptop, as I did. You can start with your phone. It doesn't really matter. You don't need the big bells and whistles, as in huge, microphones, cameras, green screens, any of those things. I don't have a green screen behind me. I've just got a Zoom background that I've created myself. You can use Zoom for free up until a 40-minute interview, so you don't need to pay for Zoom if you don't wish. You can use, Google Maps, Google Docs, Google Forms. You don't have to pay for any of those things. You can use Google Calendar. So you can use a lot of free resources to be able to start your podcast. And I think you've got to be, another myth is that it's time consuming. I won't say that is a myth, because it can be time consuming. You've got the interview, of course, which goes in, or mine go for 30-minute blocks. Then you've got the editing. So if you haven't got the resources to pay to have someone to edit your videos, then you've got to spend that time to do that yourself. And then you've got to upload it to all the various platforms. So you've got your podcast host, then you've got YouTube if it's a video podcast as well, and then you've got various other ones like Facebook or LinkedIn or a website or one of those things. So it can be time consuming, but if you have the resources, then make sure that you outsource the editing part of the video.
When you say editing, for example, when we finish our interview, there's going to be an MP4 file. I just want to bring it down to a level that people can understand and digest, because that does scare people. When you mention the editing word, that throws people. That's a roadblock for success. I happen to have a team in the Philippines that works with me to do this part, but it's very simple. You load an intro in the front, a pre-recorded intro and an outro, which I got done very cheaply on Fiverr, just as an example. And then that gets loaded with my person. I mean, and I could do that myself, but I have a person that does this all day long, this type of work, and that gets uploaded to my YouTube channel. And then the MP3, which is the audio file, goes to iTunes and Spotify. Is there anything else that, when you say editing, what do they have to do?
That's exactly what editing is. It's making sure that the MP3 is let me go back to the beginning. What I do is I upload my Zoom video into a software program and then I take out the long gaps if there happen to be long gaps in the talking. I add an intro, I add outro, I add a title thing to so that the audience knows who the guest is, even though that I've already explained it, but it just makes it for another visual that's available. I have recently been adding speech to text on all my videos, so that's an extra part of the editing process. But it can be quite simplified. You don't really need a lot of bells and whistles. And I actually did an interview with someone recently, and they added all these backgrounds and extra video pieces and clips from my website, and you don't need to do any of that. You can just have it quite simplified, as you pointed out, just an intro and an outro, and just make sure that the video in the middle is the sound is good and the audio is good and the visuals are, at least halfway decent.
What software program do you run them through? Because you mentioned you have a software program for the video piece.
I use Wondershare Filmora. I found that is adequate for my needs. I got in on the ground floor when they first released, so I've got a lifetime license. However, I don't believe the license is all that expensive, but I like them because it's easy to use. I didn't know anything about editing videos. I didn't know anything about editing audio, any of those things. I self-taught, and I found Wondershare Filmora was the easiest to use.
Okay, well, that's a great tip. See, and then there are some people. Tell me about the people that do live podcasts or live recordings. They broadcast via YouTube Live, Facebook Live. I guess LinkedIn has a component now to do this for a certain period of time, so the audiences can listen simultaneously. Have you tried that?
No, I'd rather pre-record and make sure that everything's right, because there's sometimes can be technical issues, and you get halfway through and it conks out, whereas it's pre-recorded. If there becomes an error, you can edit it out, hopefully. And there's things like people drinking coffee halfway through, a conversation, and the camera tends to switch between presenter and host and guest, sorry. And so those types of things can be edited out. Where it's a live broadcast, I'm not real keen on live broadcasts. I'd rather do pre-recorded.
Got it. No, it's different strokes, different folks. How about shorts and using some of the marketing sides? Do you get involved in that, creating shorts?
Yeah, I do that. I pick out a piece during the interview and cut it down to about 1 minute, and sometimes it's a 1 minute 30, so 90 seconds. And I just add a small 7-second intro at the beginning, and then upload that to YouTube as a short, and then hook it up with the full-length video, and then I add that to also put the shorts up on Facebook in as a reel, and on LinkedIn as a short as well.
Okay, and you do that manually?
I do, yes.
Okay, all right, yeah, because there are programs out there like Opus.pr that'll pull out the shorts for you in
No, I do that myself. I mean, I am on a really tight budget, so I don't try and use things that cost a lot of money. I try and do everything myself.
Totally get it. No, I get it. I mean, it's just interesting what's available, at some of these pain points, but you do it your way, and it's worked very well. I mean, you've got this global brand today of your podcast. And when people are feeling overwhelmed, do you recommend using tools, or do it sort of because you're special? Because not a lot of people would push through that frustration to go through the manual uploads of these various platforms.
Yeah, well, I didn't. People have often said to me, Rose, why aren't you making money from your podcast? But I didn't set out to make money. I set out to help people. And so I have thought about making money as in sponsorship or things like that. And quite honestly, if people wanted to sponsor the podcast, I would absolutely love that. But I am of the opinion that if you've got the ability to do it yourself, then do it yourself. And, don't be shy to take on challenges. And quite honestly, I love a challenge. I love doing what I'm doing. Sometimes I do get a little bit overwhelmed. I get behind in my editing because life gets in the road. However, I wouldn't have it any other way. I just love the fact that I can produce something. It may not be, overly professional, but I like to keep things organic, and that's the purpose of my podcast, is to keep things organic and keep it flowing, and so that it's enjoyable for others to watch.
Do you believe money can be made in this space? Do you coach others and charge for it? How do you turn your podcast into money? Or has it been more of a passion project for you?
Well, the podcast itself is a passion project. However, my business, Rose Davidson, does help others to learn how to podcast. So I've got an online program, so it's a do-it-yourself program. And I also have a one service where I actually walk them through, hold their hand through the whole process from start to finish.
Oh, that's great. And they would find that at rosedavidson.com.au.
Absolutely, yes. If you look under work with me.
Okay. Well, that's how people, so you have transitioned from passion and now it's into profits. So where you're able to take people through that. All right. So you walk them from absolute beginners all the way to becoming a global brand like you.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That, and it's only a new initiative, but I haven't been doing it very long. So I'm still looking for, that one client to get me started. But yeah, I'm looking forward to teaching people how to podcast, because podcast is the new blog. It's the new way to get information out there and shared amongst the populace.
Okay, well, great. Well, Rose, this has been a great interview. And I remember our interview from last year, and it's been a pleasure to have you here. So if they reach out to you at rosedavidson.com, they can either apply to be a guest on your show or seek out your services to assist them to become a podcaster like you, turning their passion into profits.
If they want to apply to be on the podcast, they go to talkingwiththeexperts.com. And if they want to learn about how to become a podcaster, or just even established podcasters who maybe want to upskill, they go to rosedavidson.com.au.
Okay. Well, Rose, thank you so much for being a guest on my show today. And I look forward to having people come to you to seek out the advice of a proven professional. I like that, PP, proven professional, Rose Davidson. Rose, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks for tuning in to the Amazing Authorities Podcast. If today's episode inspired you, take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps more experts like you rise to the top. For behind-the-scenes access and free resources to boost your authority, head to mitchcarson.com. Until next time, stay amazing.